Guys, let's get started. Those of you that are new here, thanks for hopping on. We usually have these calls every single week. We bring on different clients, talk about different questions. It's really open forum. If you guys have any questions, ask away. I want you guys to get as much value out of all these calls. The topic we have for today, proper expectations with our clients. A lot of times everyone wants some kind of magic, but this takes time. It usually takes, a few months. Even when Jeremy started with us, the first 2, 3 months, it really took a long time for you to find your groove and all of that, Jeremy. How long your sales cycles have been, and things that you've done along the way as well, Jeremy, that have led to more success. I know your conversion rates dramatically gone up since you started working with us on just doing Zoom calls and all of these things. The first time a lead comes in or you have a conversation with someone, like how long does it usually take you to actually close that deal?
From the moment the time that lead comes in versus close, from my experience, I would say it definitely takes over 30 days. Like that's being like realistic. Because even if you get the person on the phone today, things happen, right? It's usually like every 2 or 3 days, best case scenario that you're gonna get them. And then life happens, right? Maybe they reschedule. So that's like another week, it could be another 2 weeks. I found from my experience, the leads that come in from a room, usually the ones that I usually get on the phone, they usually don't close. The ones that have to kind of like work for it to get on the phone, they usually end up closing a lot quicker. So sometimes that'll push me out to like 45 days. For example, I started with Room a while back, but I relaunched everything in like the middle or the end of September. The first client I closed was actually like right around Thanksgiving. And I ended up getting all of the client's assets. It took a little while, but this was someone that I actually struggled to get. Not struggled, but it was a lot harder to get on the phone. He wasn't just like waiting for my phone call. That's from my experience. So I think realistically 30 to 45 days from start to finish. I could kind of get on the phone and I could tell if I'm going to close somewhere or not. And I'm sure you guys have experienced this. When something seems too easy, like the person just gives you everything, and then you're like, I just felt too smooth, like something's wrong here. And then next thing you know, like you get the information, you get the app out, and then next thing you know, you're like, why haven't they signed the app? What's going on? Or maybe they signed the app, but now they don't want to send in like the statements, and then they kind of go ghost, right? So I think that a good number is like 30 to 45 days from start to finish, I think.
But when you started with us, it's been like almost 3 years, right? So it's been a while. How long did it take you to make your first sale?
I told this to people who call me and they ask me for help or guidance. I would tell them, I'm like, Allan just turned me to the wolves. He didn't have these calls set up yet. I didn't have like an intro set up. I didn't know what anyone else was doing. And plus, I wasn't even using Zoom. I was just doing everything over the phone, like not showing illustrations, them not seeing my face. I was doing everything over the phone, and it took me probably maybe 2.5, 3 months. Then after that, I started to get the ball rolling and I built up some traction. But the first month, of course, I had some good appointments, but I didn't see anything till about the second, going on the third month for sure.
I'm curious, like, what are your KPIs? Like, for every 10 leads, how many appointments are you trying to set? Or for every 100 leads? Maybe you can talk about this. I'm actually curious.
So I've been trying to keep track of that now. It's a little harder only because I have thousands of leads from you guys. So in the morning, I'm calling the fresher leads. Throughout the day, I'm calling the older leads. I would say out of 10, I want the closing ratio to be 30%. I'm trying to work on my skills and everything to get up to like 50, 60%. If I meet someone face to face, there's like 80, 90% chance that I'll get them. Some months obviously are higher than others. There's times where I'll have appointments and I just close everyone. There's times where I completely strike out. If you have 10 people that are lined up, like second appointments, kind of like showing them the illustration, out of 10, you should at least get 1, 2. But here's the thing, right? You can't let that number get to you, because what's going to happen is that you might have 10 appointments and they all say no. And then you're going to start thinking, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I need to change this. I need to change that. And then you start changing your script, you start changing everything. And then meanwhile, if you left things the same, if you add on another 10, maybe you would have closed 4. And that week would have felt like a god, right? And it's not, when you do the numbers, it's still the same 2 out of 10. So just keep that in mind, like before you start making drastic changes, that you actually give yourself a nice sample size before you just start tweaking things. And that's very important.
I have a question because a lot of us, I'm guilty of this myself, will start to panic, right? It's like, hey, I talked to 10 people, I didn't make any sales, start to feel like shit. It's really an emotional roller coaster, right? So when do you decide to make changes to your sales script, or do you just keep doing it? Because it's kind of like you don't want to panic too soon, but at the same time, if it doesn't work, you got to tweak it. So I'm very curious on like the take on the balance between that.
That happens to everyone, right? Anyone that says that they have a foolproof process, they're lying, and it makes you question things. That happens to me often enough where I'm like, oh man, like I should have been better. So before I would just go and start changing everything. You go back to like that time where you made a sale and you probably didn't know the product. If you could bring yourself back to that memory, like, wait, I wasn't as good as I am now. I didn't have that much knowledge, but yet I was able to get this person on board. Maybe I just need to keep doing the same thing, but just double down on the work. So before I change anything, I'll double down, because because if you start changing things, there's really no way to measure it. The most important thing in this business, even if you absolutely suck, if you just had momentum and you just didn't care about the outcome of the close, you'll always make money. I've never heard anyone or seen anyone that actually put in the work in anything and didn't have some type of positive outcome. I've never seen it. I don't think it exists.
I'm actually curious on this because I think one really important for everybody is like getting feedback. It's usually the best feedback you're going to get from people that don't buy from you, right? Why did they decide to work with someone else? Are they not moving their money at all, etc.? So do you tend to like call back people to try to get that type of feedback?
Yeah, I've done that. I actually had that happen to me like 3 weeks ago. I actually had a client come in. It's a brand new office. There's nothing there. I mean, the place looks like if we're holding drugs for the cartel here. It's an open warehouse. Again, we're just building it out. Client came over here. We did everything, and then at the end, he changed his mind. And I called him. And I asked him, what was the reason? And he told me, look, it wasn't you, Jeremy. You're great. Thank you for everything. But my broker, I've been with her for X amount of years, so on and so forth. And I think if you do that, it's good feedback for yourself, and it's also like a humbling experience, right? Sometimes as salespeople, when you get hot, you get into your own head, like I'm the best. No one can tell me anything. I can sell anything. And I think when someone humbles you like that, when the rejection, I think it's needed. And that humbled me, right? In my mind, I'm thinking it's the office, and I should have done a better job staging the office. I wouldn't have that insecurity that I created in myself. So that humbled me, right? And meanwhile, it was something else. So I think that if you can gather others' feedback and also getting better, a lot of times when you're in a circle and you're the best person there, you don't want to work a lot harder because you think, oh, I'm the best. It's no different than like if you can always see people who are better, whether it's getting in a better circle. Unfortunately, it's hard for me to find that circle. So I go to like YouTube a lot, and I'm always watching sales videos and stealing people's, ideas from there or their techniques because I don't have that circle. This business is very lonely. It's very hard to find other people who are doing well as you or that want more than you. So I know that guy on YouTube that has hundreds of millions of dollars, like I know that's okay, that's my next target. But if I'm sitting with someone that is making half of whatever it is I make, I'll never want to grow. Just naturally, you just don't want to grow. So I think always seeing what's out there. I'm not gonna say any names here, but I've seen some advisors here that have like a TikTok, and some of it I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Some of it I'm like, yeah, I would never do that. But it's cool though. It's cool to at least see what's out there.
This is great insight. It's good to get humbled, good to get feedback from people. I'm curious on like your experience. Do you mostly get fixed indexed annuities or is it sometimes AUM?
It's both. I get both. Sometimes I use the AUM to shift it into a fixed index annuity. The most important thing is you just want to get control of the assets, or even just to get the client to trust you. Sometimes an IUL sale will lead to annuity sale and vice versa, where you'll have the annuity sale and an IUL sale. I think it's more just coming across as corny and cliche as it sounds, is like you just want to help the person. Obviously, we're all in it to make money, but it's really just to help the person and just to get their guard down.
Is there a track or scripts or protocol used for our system? Maybe you can go through how you framed the initial call.
Yeah. So as soon as the lead comes in, I'll just say like, hey, Brad, it's just Jeremy. I was just getting back to you. It looks like you were possibly looking at some information on the SGRA account. Did you happen to find what it is that you were looking for, or are you still looking? Sometimes you can say like, I'll ask like, what about the ad? Caught your attention. That's also another opening question I use. And then the person will say, oh, I saw this account and I have this, I have that. So sometimes they'll just open up. After I find out what is that they're looking for, kind of like what that need is there, I'll harp on it a little bit, and then I'll go and I'll introduce myself and like explain like what it is that we do, and then I'll book the second appointment. I don't go into too much details like on products or anything like that. It's really just more generic, kind of just get them to know that that we are legit, and then booking the second appointment. And I try to book the second appointment between, let's say, 24 to 72 hours out. I don't want to go longer than 72 hours. So like 3 days.
Last year, the economy was doing poorly. People were probably panicking. Now, the markets have stabilized. How has that changed your approach, if at all, even when you initially call people?
If I pull out a gun, someone could say, oh, you're going to use it to rob people? Or some people are going to say, no, you're going to use it to go ahead and protect people. It's the same weapon, same tool. Same thing with the annuity. If you're trying to sell on fear and the market's going up, no one is going to say, how the hell would I get 5 or 6%? No one would want to lock up their money for 10 years in a fixed index annuity if the market is doing well, because they've just seen the temporary result. If you speak to your IMOs, I can almost guarantee you that they'll tell you that their record-breaking years was during a market crash. So if it's fear-based, fine. You can go ahead and you can set it on fear. Hey, let's not lose all of your money, whatever it is that you say. If the market's going up, you can use the same thing, but now use it to protect your money. Like, listen, the market's doing well, rather than you worry about without that, why don't we use it to protect your money? But if you try to sell fear while the market's going up, people will get annoyed by it. So that's happened to me, and in the past, where you try to shove something down someone's throat, like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it, in the market. So that's why if you have like the other licenses for the AUM, now you can kind of at least get control of their assets and slowly position them into the annuities. Or you can use the annuities, like I said, it just depends on how you pitched it. No one wants to be sold. You can present it as a solution to help them, so you have to pay attention to what's going on in the market. But again, you can't always just sell the fear, if that makes sense.
I've been doing annuities for about 30 years. So I do everything on education. So I've been doing workshops, seminars, and everything's on education. So when I talk to somebody, I'm just trying to find out what's the purpose of money, what they're doing, talk a little bit about my background, and then schedule an appointment. How is that different from what you're doing?
I think that's pretty similar to what I do. First phone call, just an intro. Then the second and third, I'll actually go and educate them, and I go over concepts. Sometimes people on the first phone call, they probably give them too much, and then the second phone call, they probably won't answer. They'll just take their idea and just go to their advisor.
You'll call and they'll answer. You might get into a decent conversation and they'll go, well, what do you charge? How do you get paid? I have some responses to that, but I'm definitely curious on, what you said. I think I'm just trying to sharpen my saw, as I grow in this space, right? Because it's a different space. I've never been in this space, but I've been with Vroom about 100 days, and it's really taken me a couple of months to find my stride and be able to go from call to appointment to pre-close to application, right? Finally got some money coming through. So I'm pumped, and I definitely see the value inside of it. So just curious on how you address that, because I'm starting to deal with that a little bit more.
Yeah, a couple things. So sometimes what people will do, and I've seen this happen before, and I was guilty of it, a long time ago when I first started, is sometimes people will compare, let's say, annuity fees to a managed money account, right? And say, hey, your broker charges you these fees. With the annuity, it'll be less, or there aren't any fees, and you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. One, because in the future, you may get that license, or maybe not, whatever case may be. And plus, you also don't want to get into like a fee war where now the person forgot about Carl, they forgot about why they like you. Now they just really working on Carl's product is charging me this, my broker charged me that, and it's just a mess. So the way that I address fees is I say, look, fees are never an issue as long as there's value there, right? And now it addresses that if the person is not, or the product or the situation isn't providing value, then that's when a fee becomes a problem. 99% of the time they say, yeah, of course, it makes sense. And then after that, I'll go into the same thing, like, look, I'm not sure if we can help you yet. But again, it depends on where the fee is. Is this a fee like you're about to close a person, they're asking you for the fees, or is this like the first phone call? And that's where the response would be different. If it's the first phone call, as long as you're open and honest, because sometimes what happens is if you say that there's no fee straight up front,
they don't believe you.
Right. Like your credibility just drops. But if you just say, look, as long as there's value, a fee is not a problem, person like, yeah, I definitely agree. And then that's it. You addressed it and you move on. And then on the second phone call, the close, whatever it is, whatever the fee is, then obviously, I hope that you disclose the fee.
When someone says how you get paid, I've always used analogies on a lot of things. What do you guys do?
Well, I mean, how do you do it now? I'm just curious.
Oh, sure. So when somebody says, how do you get paid? I just say, hey, I deal with fixed products, and most of my products do not have fees at all. And how I get paid, because you're probably wondering how I get paid, very simple. Since my products are fixed, are you familiar with banks? Have you ever gone to a bank and purchased a CD? You get a CD and they're offering you 5%, you're getting 5%. The bank is independently paying the broker who's representing that product independently from your money to represent that 5% CD. I work exactly the same way. I focus on fixed products. Product that I offer you, they pay me independently. So there's never a fee to you.
So that I don't do.
How wrong is that?
No, it's not wrong. It's not. I mean, look, you've been doing this as much time as I've been on this earth. So, and if you're still in the business, obviously you're doing something right. So what I would say is so the way I do it, and it's not right or wrong, but because a lot of times I don't put everything into the annuity, and they're most sales
right
of the assets and the annuity, I just tell them, listen, anything insurance related, we're compensated directly from the carrier. Anything that is market based in the sense of the managed money account, then there's a fee. And then I use like a corny line, and anyone can switch it. I'll say the only fee that there is like if you want to buy me lunch, that's on you. 9 times out of 10, they start laughing like, yeah, sure, if you make
like
money.
Do you have an assistant that calls to book your first meetings?
I have someone that calls for me, but I don't have them calling the fresh leads that just come in. I have them calling me like someone of the leads that are older, like 3 months out, a few months out. I'm not gonna say that those leads are dead. Like I've shared many times, I've gotten a lot of results from older leads, but obviously you want to focus on the fresh names, right? With that being said, if you could get someone to call, I think it's worth it. When I first hired someone a few years ago, it just didn't work out, and I was expecting them to be as good as me or care as much as me, and no one's gonna care about it as much as you are. So what I would say is that if you're looking to hire anyone, if you can get someone to even care or do 60 to 70% of what you could do, that's a home run. Because 60 to 70% of something is better than those leads just sitting there.
Maybe talk about the times where you found the highest contact rates, because we usually tell people that the best times to call is in the mornings and in the evenings. So maybe we can get your take on that.
For me, the best times would be 8 in the morning to 10 in the morning, whatever state you're calling in. Even like to like 11, you can push it to about 11. From 11 to about 3, that I really don't get that many contact rate drops. And then my best hours are from like, let's say like 4 to 8. I call till 9 p.m., but from 4 to 8 is the best. I think if you could just call everyone that you couldn't get on the phone between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. and on Saturdays, I think you'll get a high contact rate. But the people who you just can't get on the phone.
It's like, hey, I want to pitch the illustration and focus on that. I wanted your take because I know in the past you've talked about on a lot of calls where you don't even have to present the illustration. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you've approached that and has that changed at all over the last years?
Yeah, so I rarely show one. If I have to show an illustration, the only time I feel like an illustration is needed is if there's income involved. Like if the person's telling you, hey, I need X amount of dollars every single month for the rest of my life, then it's okay to show the illustration. Other than that, if it's an annuity for growth, I feel like once you show an illustration, the chances of you getting them on board drop drastically, in my opinion, only because they're going to want a copy of it. So I never email it. I never email any illustrations at all. I just don't do it. A lot of times people are going to look at it, they'll say whatever it is that they have to say about it, and then they kind of go ghost from my experience. So it's very rare that I actually email the illustration. What I'll do is I do a Zoom call, I go over it with them, and then I explain it to them. And as I'm presenting throughout the presentation, I'll stop and then I'll ask if they have any questions. Now, when I stop and ask if they have any questions, I take the stop sharing screen off of it because I want them to look at me and see me and be engaged. Because then what's going to happen is they're going to start looking at what's the guaranteed death benefit, what's this, what's that, and asking all these questions that no one gives a hell about, right? Or sometimes you don't even know the answer. With that being said, I have it to where I don't show the illustrations. If someone asks for information there, they're adamant on it, like, listen, I needed to see it, I'll send them like a one pager, like from whatever the one pager is, like 1 or 2 pages that kind of just tells them the general information about the product. If you have to sell based on the illustration, there's a good chance that person isn't convinced yet. It's a really, really good chance that that person is not going to move forward. So the person has to like you, they got to trust you, they have to feel like you can solve whatever it is that they're looking for. And the illustration is not going to do it. Most of the times, if you're presenting an illustration and you keep having to revert back to the illustration, I would say stop the phone call, stop the illustration, go back and find out what's driving that person, whether it's a need, the fear, the greed, whatever it is, that pain point is, and then resell them. Because you showing someone the illustration of their money going from X to X amount to X amount, sometimes it's just not going to cut it, because what they're going to do is they're going to say or feel, hey, if Jeremy's showing me this, then Rich could probably show me this. So when it comes to illustrations, I rarely use them. I use them every now and then, but I would say out of, let's say, 10 closes, if I sold off of the illustration 2 out of 10, that would be a lot. It's probably like 1 out of 10.
Have you ever got any that are so old that they don't understand Zoom or basically refuse to? Eric mentioned he's had it happen twice.
Yeah, of course. I've had that happen to me. And I think that it happens a lot more, than people realize, because a lot of times you're dealing with individuals that in their 60s. It's anyone that's in their 60s, 70s here. I'm not insulting them. Like, you have to understand also, like, for example, myself, I'm in my early 30s. There's times that my nieces and nephews show me things like with AI and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, I used to make fun of my parents when they would give me their phone and say, hey, can you input this person's number? And now I'm that person. It's just karma, I guess. But whenever someone says that, what I do is I say, are you familiar with Zoom? Have you used it before? If they say no, I'll say, look, it's very simple. I'll send you over a link. You're going to click on it and I'll walk you through it. If not, it's not a big deal. We'll just do it over the phone, pen and paper. I do it all the time. This way they can feel comfortable, because a lot of times you don't want someone to feel flushed or like, Jeremy, I like him. I kind of want to know, but he's asking me to click on this link. I don't even know how to check my email, and you don't want, because you could lose a sale. So you just give them the option. Like, look, it's very simple. I'll send you a link. If it works, great. If not, we just do it pen and paper. I'll draw it all out for you. I do it all the time. Make it seem like it's nothing. So that has helped me.
Well, that's awesome. I love that. Next question we have from Carlos. What props and tools can you use instead of an illustration? Do you use any softwares or anything like that?
No, I just use myself and a pen and paper, and the illustration I use is whatever it is that the IMO makes for me, but I don't have any software. I know some people use slides. I think slides are okay. I just feel like sometimes the slides might distract the person in a way. I think it's very intimate. And again, I know people who use it. I just feel like in Zoom, with the fact that you're not in front of them, it needs to be more intimate. And sometimes a slide, the person could just get caught up. And sometimes you, as a salesperson, you might just get caught up on relying on that slide to do the selling, when in reality, it's the person who needs to do the selling.